I married my mother's millionaire friend. Everything was going well until I saw what she did every night. I was stunned. Welcome to the channel. Enjoy the video. Give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment and share. Nathan Parker stared at the pile of ungraded papers on his desk, his mind wandering to the upcoming summer break. As a high school teacher in the small town of Pinecrest, Oregon, he was used to the simple life. His tiny apartment above Mrs. Johnson's garage was a far cry from luxury, but it was home. Little did he know his world was about to be turned upside down. The shrill ring of his cell phone cut through the quiet classroom. "Nathan, honey, it's Mom." Diana Parker's voice crackled through the speaker. "I've got wonderful news. Remember my old friend Olivia? Well, she's invited us to spend the summer at her beach house in California, all expenses paid." Nathan's eyebrows shot up. "Mom, that's unexpected. Are you sure it's not too much trouble for her?" Diana laughed, a sound tinged with excitement. "Oh, sweetheart, you don't know Olivia. Trouble isn't in her vocabulary when it comes to money. Trust me, this is pocket change for her." As Nathan hung up, his mind raced. He'd heard stories about Olivia Hawthorne, the successful businesswoman, the philanthropist, the millionaire with a heart of gold, but he'd never met her. And the prospect of spending an entire summer in a luxurious beach house was both thrilling and intimidating. 2 weeks later, Nathan found himself staring slack-jawed at the sprawling mansion before him. The California sun glinted off floor-to-ceiling windows, and a sleek sports car worth more than his yearly salary sat in the curved driveway. "Nathan! Diana!" a voice called out, smooth as silk and rich with warmth. And there she was, Olivia Hawthorne, striding towards them in a flowing sundress that probably cost more than Nathan's entire wardrobe. Her smile was dazzling, her presence magnetic. At 43, she was stunning, with an air of confidence that made her seem ageless. "Welcome to my humble abode," Olivia said, embracing Diana like a long-lost sister. Then she turned to Nathan, her green eyes twinkling. "And you must be the famous Nathan. Your mother's told me so much about you." Nathan felt his cheeks flush. "All good things, I hope," he managed to stammer. Olivia's laugh was like music. "Oh, the best. Now let me show you around. I hope you'll find everything to your liking." As they toured the house, Nathan's head spun. Every room screamed of wealth, from the state-of-the-art kitchen with its marble countertops to the home theater that put most cinemas to shame. The guest rooms, their rooms for the summer, were larger than Nathan's entire apartment. "This is incredible," Nathan breathed, and unable to hide his awe. Olivia smiled, a hint of something unreadable in her eyes. "I'm glad you like it. I have a feeling this summer is going to be very interesting for all of us." Those words would prove to be more prophetic than Nathan could have ever imagined. As the days passed, Nathan found himself increasingly drawn to Olivia. She was fascinating, brilliant, witty, and surprisingly down-to-earth despite her obvious wealth. They spent long evenings on the beach, talking about everything from literature to politics. Olivia seemed genuinely interested in Nathan's work as a teacher, often asking for his opinions on education and social issues. But there was something else, too, something that nagged at the back of Nathan's mind. Sometimes he'd catch a glimpse of Olivia when she thought no one was looking. In those unguarded moments, her smile would fade, replaced by a look of, worry, fear. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. And then there were the phone calls. Late at night, when everyone else was asleep, Nathan would hear Olivia's hushed voice from her study. The conversations were always in hurried, urgent tones, and more than once he heard her mention large sums of money. One night, about 3 weeks into their stay, Nathan's curiosity got the better of him. He crept down the hallway, drawn by the sound of Olivia's voice. The study door was slightly ajar, and he could just make out her words. "No, you don't understand. The transfer has to happen tonight. Yes, all 5 million. I don't care about the risks. Just get it done." Nathan's heart raced. $5 million. What kind of business was Olivia involved in that required such large, secretive transactions? As he turned to sneak back to his room, the floorboard beneath his foot creaked. The conversation in the study abruptly stopped. "Is someone there?" Olivia called out, her voice sharp with tension. Nathan froze, his mind scrambling for an excuse. But before he could respond, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned, expecting to see his mother, but instead found himself face to face with a man he'd never seen before. Tall, imposing, with a look that could freeze blood. "Mr. Parker," the man said, his voice low and menacing, "I believe Miss Hawthorne asked you a question." Nathan's mouth went dry. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The man's grip on his shoulder tightened painfully. Suddenly, Olivia appeared in the doorway of the study. Her eyes widened at the scene before her, then narrowed dangerously. "Marcus," she said sharply, "let him go. Now!" The man, Marcus, released Nathan's shoulder, but his cold gaze never wavered. Olivia's expression softened as she turned to Nathan. "I'm so sorry, Nathan. You must be wondering what's going on. Please, come into my study. I think it's time we had a talk." As Nathan followed Olivia into the study, his mind reeled. Who was Marcus? What was the $5 million for? And most importantly, who was Olivia Hawthorne really? Little did Nathan know, the answers to these questions would shake the very foundations of his world, and nothing would ever be the same again. The door closed behind them with a soft click, and Nathan found himself in Olivia's opulent study. The walls were lined with leather-bound books, and a massive mahogany desk dominated the room. But it was the safe behind the desk that caught Nathan's attention, its door slightly ajar, revealing stacks of cash and documents inside. Olivia sighed, sinking into her plush leather chair. "I suppose you heard my phone conversation," she said, her voice tinged with resignation. Nathan nodded, his throat dry. "Olivia, what's going on? Who was that man? And why are you transferring $5 million in the middle of the night?" For a moment, Olivia was silent, her fingers tracing the edge of a gold-plated pen on her desk. When she looked up, her green eyes were filled with a mixture of determination and... was that fear? "Nathan, what I'm about to tell you must remain between us. Your mother can't know. No one can know. Do you understand?" Nathan nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. Olivia took a deep breath. "I'm not just a businesswoman and philanthropist. That's my cover. In reality, I work for a secret organization that, well, let's just say we deal with problems that can't be solved through official channels." Nathan's mind reeled. What kind of problems? Corruption, human trafficking, international crime syndicates, the kind of issues that are too big, too entrenched for normal law enforcement to handle. As Olivia continued to speak, painting a picture of a shadowy world Nathan had never imagined existed, he felt as if the floor was tilting beneath his feet. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen in real life, did they? "The $5 million, Olivia explained, is for an operation we're running. We're trying to take down a major drug cartel that's been laundering money through children's charities." Nathan's head spun. "But why you? Why not the FBI or the CIA?" Olivia's laugh was hollow. "Oh, Nathan, you'd be surprised how deep the corruption goes. We can't trust official channels, that's why our organization exists." As the night wore on, Olivia revealed more and more. The organization she worked for had no name, no official status. It operated in the shadows, funded by wealthy benefactors who wanted to make a difference without the constraints of bureaucracy. "And your mother," Olivia said, her voice softening. "She's part of this too. That's how we know each other." Nathan felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. His mother, the quiet librarian who baked cookies and ran the local book club. It couldn't be true. But as Olivia spoke, pieces began to fall into place. The mysterious trips his mother took, the hushed phone conversations, the way she always seemed to know more about world events than anyone else in their small town. As dawn broke, casting a soft glow through the study windows, Nathan's world had been irrevocably changed. The simple life he thought he knew had been a carefully constructed illusion. "Why are you telling me all this?" Nathan asked, his voice hoarse from hours of conversation. Olivia leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Because we need your help, Nathan. Your unique position, your skills as a teacher, you could be invaluable to our cause." Nathan's mind raced. He thought of his students back in Pinecrest, of the simple life he'd left behind. Could he really turn his back on all that? Could he step into this dangerous, shadowy world? But as he looked at Olivia, saw the passion and determination in her eyes, he felt something stir within him, a desire to make a real difference, to be part of something bigger than himself. "What do you need me to do?" he heard himself ask. Olivia smiled, a mix of relief and excitement on her face. "First, we need to establish your cover, and I think I have the perfect idea." She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, she revealed a stunning diamond ring. "Nathan Parker," she said, her voice filled with a strange mix of business and emotion. "Will you marry me?" Nathan stared at the diamond ring glittering in Olivia's hand, his mind reeling. "Marry you?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Olivia's lips curved into a knowing smile. "It's the perfect cover, Nathan. A whirlwind romance, a surprise wedding. It'll give you instant access to my world, my connections. No one will question your presence at high-profile events or late-night meetings." As the reality of the situation sank in, Nathan felt a mix of excitement and terror. This was far beyond anything he'd ever imagined for himself. Just weeks ago, he'd been grading papers in a small-town classroom. Now, he was being drawn into a world of secret organizations, million-dollar deals, and undercover operations. "What about my mother?" he asked, his voice shaky. "What will she think?" Olivia's expression softened. "Diana will understand. She's been in this game longer than either of us. In fact, I suspect she'll be relieved that you're finally being brought into the fold." Over the next few days, events moved at a dizzying pace. A lavish engagement party was hastily arranged, with guests flying in from around the world on private jets. Nathan found himself shaking hands with senators, tech billionaires, and international dignitaries, all of whom, he now realized, were likely part of Olivia's secret network. The wedding itself was a spectacle of wealth and extravagance, held on a private island off the coast of California. It featured performances by world-famous musicians, gourmet cuisine prepared by Michelin-starred chefs, and enough champagne to fill an Olympic-sized pool. As Nathan stood at the altar, watching Olivia glide towards him in a designer gown that cost more than his yearly salary, he couldn't help but feel like he was living in a dream, or perhaps a very elaborate nightmare. But amidst the glitz and glamour, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. He caught glimpses of hushed conversations, meaningful glances exchanged between guests. And then there was Marcus, the man who had grabbed him that night outside Olivia's study. He seemed to be everywhere, watching Nathan with cold, calculating eyes. As the newlyweds prepared to leave for their honeymoon, a month-long tour of exclusive resorts in the Mediterranean, Nathan pulled his mother aside. "Mom," he said, his voice low and urgent, "I need to know. Is all of this real? Are you really part of some secret organization?" Diana's eyes, so like his own, filled with a mixture of pride and sadness. "Oh, Nathan," she sighed, cupping his face in her hands. "I always knew this day would come. Yes, it's real, all of it. And now you're part of it too." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a small, innocuous-looking flash drive. "Take this," she whispered, pressing it into his hand. "Keep it safe. If anything happens to me or Olivia, the information on this drive will explain everything." Before Nathan could respond, Olivia appeared at his side, her arm sliding around his waist possessively. "Ready to go, darling?" she asked, her smile dazzling for the cameras that followed their every move. As they boarded the private jet, Nathan's head was spinning. He'd stepped into a world of wealth beyond his wildest dreams. But at what cost? The weight of the flash drive in his pocket felt like a ticking time bomb. Their honeymoon was a whirlwind of luxury and indulgence, from the sun-soaked beaches of the Greek Isles to the glittering casinos of Monaco. Nathan found himself swept up in a lifestyle he'd only ever seen in movies. But beneath the surface of champagne brunches and yacht parties, a current of tension ran deep. Olivia was constantly on her phone, stepping away for hushed conversations. Mysterious packages were delivered to their hotel suites, only to disappear just as quickly. And always, there was the feeling of being watched. It was in Santorini, as they lounged on the balcony of their cliffside villa, that Nathan finally broached the subject. "Olivia," he said, watching her profile against the setting sun, "when are you going to tell me what's really going on?" She turned to him, her green eyes unreadable. "What do you mean, darling? This isn't just about taking down a drug cartel, is it? There's something bigger happening, something you're not telling me." For a long moment, Olivia was silent. Then, with a sigh, she reached for her tablet. "I suppose you're ready to know the truth," she said, her fingers flying over the screen. But I warn you, Nathan, once you see this, there's no going back. She handed him the tablet, and Nathan felt his breath catch in his throat. On the screen was a complex web of connections, corporations, government officials, banks, all linked together in an intricate dance of money and power. This, Olivia said, her voice low and intense, is what we're really fighting against. A global network of corruption so vast, so entrenched, that most people can't even comprehend its existence. They control everything: politics, finance, even the food we eat, and the air we breathe. As Nathan scrolled through the information, his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. Fortune 500 companies funneling money into shadow organizations, politicians on the payroll of crime syndicates, entire countries manipulated like pawns on a chessboard. But how? He whispered, looking up at Olivia with wide eyes. How can we possibly fight something this big? Olivia's smile was grim. That's where you come in, Nathan. Your background, your innocence, it makes you the perfect mole. We need you to infiltrate one of their key operations. She leaned in close, her breath warm against his ear. There's a private school in Switzerland. On the surface, it's an elite academy for the children of the world's wealthiest families, but in reality, it's a training ground for the next generation of this corrupt network. We need you to get in there, to become a teacher, to gain their trust. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. And then what? And then, Olivia said, her eyes glinting with determination, we bring the whole thing crashing down. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Aegean Sea in shades of gold and crimson, Nathan realized that his life had irrevocably changed. He was no longer just Nathan Parker, small-town teacher. He was now a key player in a global chess game, with the fate of millions hanging in the balance. But even as he nodded his agreement to Olivia's plan, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered a warning. Could he trust her completely? Was she telling him everything? Or was he just another pawn in a game he didn't fully understand? As they prepared to leave Santorini for their next destination, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The flash drive his mother had given him seemed to burn in his pocket, a reminder that in this new world he'd entered, nothing was as it seemed. Little did he know the true test of his loyalty and his survival was yet to come. As the private jet soared into the night sky, carrying them towards their next adventure, Nathan couldn't help but wonder, had he made the biggest mistake of his life, or was he on the verge of becoming the hero the world desperately needed? The answer, he would soon discover, was far more complicated and far more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. The crisp mountain air of the Swiss Alps bit at Nathan's cheeks as he stepped out of the sleek black car. Before him stood Chateau Lumineux, the elite private school that would be his new home and battleground for the foreseeable future. Remember, Olivia's voice crackled through his earpiece, hidden discreetly beneath his collar, you're Nathan Collins now, a brilliant young educator from a modest background, hand-picked for your innovative teaching methods. Stick to the story we've crafted. Nathan nodded imperceptibly, straightening his tie, a silk Hermes piece that cost more than his old monthly salary. The past few months had been a crash course in wealth, power, and deception. He'd learned to move in high society, to speak the language of the elite, but nothing had prepared him for this. As he walked through the ornate gates of Chateau Lumineux, Nathan couldn't help but marvel at the opulence surrounding him. The school looked more like a palace than an educational institution, with its soaring spires and manicured gardens. Fountains sparkled in the sunlight, their waters probably worth more per ounce than gold. "Mr. Collins," a crisp voice called out. A tall, austere woman approached, her steel-grey hair pulled back in a severe bun. "I'm Headmistress Elise Beaumont. Welcome to Chateau Lumineux." Nathan shook her hand, noting the firmness of her grip. "Thank you, Headmistress. I'm honored to be here." As Headmistress Beaumont led him on a tour of the grounds, Nathan's trained eye began to pick up on details that seemed off. The security was far too tight for a normal school, even one catering to the children of the world's elite, and some of the students they passed in the halls carried themselves with an air that spoke of more than just wealth and privilege. There was a hardness in their eyes, a calculated awareness that seemed out of place in teenagers. "And this," Headmistress Beaumont said, gesturing to a nondescript door at the end of a long hallway, "is our special projects wing. So I'm afraid it's off-limits to most staff. including yourself, Mr. Collins." Nathan nodded, but his curiosity was piqued. What could they be hiding behind that innocuous-looking door? As the days passed, Nathan threw himself into his role as a teacher. He led classes in literature and critical thinking, all the while keeping his eyes and ears open for any hint of the true nature of Chateau Lumineux. It was during one of these classes that he first met Sofia Kovalenko, a striking 17-year-old girl with piercing blue eyes and an intellect that both impressed and unnerved him. She seemed to hang on his every word, often staying after class to engage him in deep discussions about philosophy and politics. "Mr. Collins," Sophia said one afternoon, lingering by his desk, "I was wondering if you'd consider overseeing an independent study project for me. It's about the intersection of technology and global finance." Nathan's instincts tingled. This could be the opening he'd been waiting for. "Of course, Sophia, I'd be happy to." As they began working together, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia was testing him, probing for something beyond his knowledge of literature and economics. Her questions often veered into territories that seemed far beyond the scope of a typical high school curriculum. It was late one night, as Nathan was grading papers in his quarters, that he received an encrypted message from Olivia. "Progress report needed. What have you uncovered?" Nathan frowned at his secure tablet. The truth was, despite weeks of careful observation and subtle probing, he had little concrete evidence of any nefarious activities at Chateau Lumineux. Yes, there were oddities and suspicions, but nothing solid. As he pondered his response, a soft knock at his door startled him. He quickly hid the tablet and called out, "Come in." To his surprise, it was Sophia who entered, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. "Mr. Collins," she whispered, "I need your help. I've discovered something terrible, but I don't know who to trust." Nathan's heart raced. This could be the break he'd been waiting for. "What is it, Sophia? You can trust me." She glanced nervously over her shoulder before pulling a small USB drive from her pocket. "It's all here. The truth about Chateau Lumineux, about what they're really teaching us. But if they find out I know—" Before she could finish, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. Sophia's eyes widened in panic. "They're coming!" she hissed. "Please, take this. Keep it safe. And whatever you do, don't trust—" The door burst open, cutting off Sophia's words. Marcus, the man from Olivia's beach house, stood in the doorway, flanked by two burly security guards. His cold eyes took in the scene before him. "Mr. Collins," he said, his voice dripping with false politeness, "the headmistress would like to see you now." As Nathan was led away, he caught a glimpse of Sophia being escorted in the opposite direction, her face a mask of fear and regret. The USB drive felt like a burning coal in his pocket. In Headmistress Beaumont's office, Nathan found not only the stern woman, but also a face he hadn't expected to see, Olivia. She sat behind the massive oak desk, looking every inch the powerful businesswoman in a crisp suit that probably cost more than a year's tuition at Chateau Lumineux. "Nathan, darling," Olivia purred, her green eyes glinting dangerously, "it seems we have a problem." Nathan's mind raced. Had his cover been blown, or was this all part of some deeper game he didn't yet understand? "I don't understand," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "What's going on?" Olivia's smile was cold as she stood, circling around the desk like a predator stalking its prey. "Oh, I think you do. You see, we've been watching you very closely, Nathan. Your little chats with Sofia Kovalenko haven't gone unnoticed." Nathan's blood ran cold. He opened his mouth to speak, but Olivia held up a hand, silencing him. Now, don't try to deny it. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" She perched on the edge of the desk, her eyes never leaving Nathan's face. "You have two choices, my dear. You can continue to play your little game of spy, in which case I'm afraid things will become very unpleasant for you. Or," she paused, letting the tension build. "Or," Nathan prompted, his throat dry. Olivia's smile widened. "Or you can join us, truly join us. Because you see, Nathan, everything I've told you so far has been a lie. The organization you think you're working for, it doesn't exist, at least not in the way you believe." Nathan felt the floor sway beneath his feet. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, my dear naive husband, that we are the very thing you thought you were fighting against, and now you have a choice to make. Join us and enjoy wealth and power beyond your wildest dreams, or oppose us and—" She let the threat hang in the air, unspoken but crystal clear. As Nathan stood there, his world crumbling around him, he realized that the true test he'd been anticipating had finally arrived. But it was nothing like he'd expected. The lines between good and evil, once so clear in his mind, had blurred beyond recognition. In that moment, with Olivia's expectant gaze upon him, and the weight of Sophia's USB drive heavy in his pocket, Nathan knew that his next decision would change not only his life, but potentially the fate of the world itself. What he didn't know was that the true mastermind behind it all was someone he'd never suspected, someone whose revelation would shake him to his very core. As the clock ticked away the seconds, Nathan Parker stood on the precipice of a choice that would define him forever. Nathan's mind raced, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure everyone in the room could hear it. The weight of Sophia's USB drive in his pocket felt like an anchor, grounding him to his original mission. But Olivia's revelations had thrown everything into chaos. I need time to think, he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Olivia's laugh was cold and brittle. Time, my dear Nathan, is a luxury we don't have. The world doesn't stop spinning just because you're having a crisis of conscience. Suddenly, the door burst open. Diana Parker, Nathan's mother, strode in, her usual gentle demeanor replaced by an aura of command that made even Olivia step back. "That's enough, Olivia," Diana said, her voice sharp. "You've played your hand. Now it's time he knew the whole truth." Nathan stared at his mother in disbelief. Gone was the quiet librarian he'd known all his life. In her place stood a woman who radiated power and authority. "Mom, what's going on?" Diana's eyes softened as she looked at her son. "Oh, Nathan, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. But it's time you understood the true nature of our work." She turned to Olivia, her gaze hardening. "Show him." With a sigh of resignation, Olivia pressed a button on the desk. The bookshelf behind her slid away, revealing a hidden room filled with high-tech equipment. Screens displayed real-time data from around the globe, tracking everything from stock markets to political upheavals. "Welcome," Diana said, out of the heart of the Guardians. As they stepped into the hidden command center, Nathan's head spun. This was beyond anything he'd imagined. "The Guardians?" he asked, his voice weak. Diana nodded. "We are the true power behind the scenes, Nathan. Not good, not evil, but necessary. We maintain the delicate balance of the world by manipulating governments, controlling the global economy." Nathan's voice rose with each question. "How is that not evil?" Olivia stepped forward, her earlier coldness replaced by a look of earnest intensity. "Think, Nathan. Without us, the world would descend into chaos. We prevent wars, manage resources, guide technological development. Yes, we operate in the shadows, but only because the light of public scrutiny would destroy everything we've built." Nathan's mind reeled as he tried to process this information. The organization he thought he was fighting against was actually run by his own mother, and now they wanted him to join them. "But what about the corruption, the drug cartels, the human trafficking?" he demanded. Diana sighed heavily. "Necessary evils, I'm afraid. We can't control everything directly. Sometimes we have to allow certain unsavory elements to exist in order to maintain overall stability." Nathan felt sick. "And Chateau Lumineux? What's really happening here?" Olivia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "This is where we train the next generation of Guardians, the brightest minds, the most promising talents. We mold them, prepare them for the burden of safeguarding humanity's future." As if on cue, the door opened, and Sophia was led in by Marcus. Her earlier fear was gone, replaced by a cool confidence that mirrored Olivia's. "Well done, Sophia," Diana said warmly. "You played your part perfectly." Nathan's jaw dropped. You were in on this?" Sophia nodded, a hint of regret in her eyes. "I'm sorry for the deception, Nathan, but it was necessary. We needed to test you, to see how you'd react when faced with a moral dilemma." "The USB drive?" Nathan asked, pulling it from his pocket. "Blank," Sophia confirmed. "Just a prop in our little play." Nathan's world tilted on its axis. Everything he thought he knew, everything he believed in, was crumbling around him. He turned to his mother, searching for any sign of the woman who had raised him. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why all this deception?" Diana's eyes filled with tears. "Because, my darling boy, you are so much more important than you know. You're not just my son. You're the culmination of generations of careful genetic selection and upbringing. You, Nathan, are destined to lead the Guardians into the next era. The room fell silent as the weight of Diana's words sank in. Nathan felt as if he were standing on the edge of a precipice, the future of humanity stretching out before him like a vast, uncharted territory. I don't know if I can do this, he whispered. Olivia stepped forward, taking his hand in hers. For the first time, Nathan saw genuine emotion in her eyes. That's why I married you, Nathan. Not just as a cover, but because I truly believe in you. Your compassion, your integrity. These are qualities the Guardians desperately need. As Nathan struggled to come to terms with his new reality, alarms suddenly blared throughout the command center. Screens flashed red, displaying warnings and alerts from around the globe. What's happening? Nathan asked, his earlier turmoil momentarily forgotten in the face of this new crisis. Diana rushed to a central console, her fingers flying over the controls. It's what we've been preparing for, she said, her voice grim. A coordinated attack on our systems worldwide. Someone's trying to expose us, to bring down the entire network of Guardians. Olivia swore under her breath. It has to be the Disruptors. They're the only ones with the resources and knowledge to attempt something like this. The Disruptors? Nathan asked, feeling once again like he was several steps behind everyone else. A rival organization, Sophia explained quickly. They believe that humanity should be allowed to evolve naturally, without our guidance. They see us as tyrants, not guardians, as chaos erupted around them, with operatives rushing in and out of the command center, barking orders and relaying information. Nathan found himself at the center of a storm he barely understood. Diana turned to him, her eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and determination. Nathan, we need you. Your unique perspective, your outsider's view. It might be the key to stopping this attack. Nathan looked around the room, at the faces turned expectantly towards him. His mother, the woman who had shaped his entire life for this moment. Olivia, the wife he barely knew but felt inexplicably drawn to. Sophia, the student who had challenged and intrigued him. In that moment, standing in the heart of a global conspiracy he never knew existed, Nathan Parker realized that the choice before him was about more than just right and wrong. It was about the very future of humanity. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, ready to embrace his destiny, whatever it might be. What do you need me to do? He asked, his voice steady and resolved. As the alarms continued to blare and the screens flashed with warnings of impending doom, Nathan felt a strange calm settle over him. He had spent his life teaching others about the great moments in history, the pivotal decisions that shaped the world. Now, he found himself at the center of one such moment. The fate of billions hung in the balance, and the next few hours would determine whether the carefully maintained order of the Guardians would survive, or if the world would be plunged into a chaos it was unprepared for. Little did Nathan know, the true test of his character, and the biggest revelation of all, was yet to come. As he prepared to dive into the fray, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered a warning. In a world of secrets and lies, who could he truly trust? The answer, he would soon discover, would shake the very foundations of everything he thought he knew about himself, his family, and the delicate balance of power that governed the world. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Nathan found himself at the center of a global crisis management operation, his mind racing to keep up with the flood of information and decisions being made around him. "We've lost contact with our Singapore hub," an analyst called out, her voice tight with stress. Olivia cursed under her breath. "That's the third major center we've lost in the last hour. Nathan, what do you think? You're the fresh eyes here." Nathan stared at the global map displayed on the main screen, his teacher's mind kicking into high gear. "It's a pattern," he muttered, stepping closer to the display. "Look, they're not just hitting random targets. They're systematically isolating regions, cutting off communication lines." Diana nodded approvingly. "Good catch. But what's their end game?" As Nathan opened his mouth to respond, a new alert flashed across the screens. Sophia, who had been working furiously at a nearby terminal, gasped. "They've breached our main firewall," she announced, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "They're trying to access the Pandora protocol." The room fell silent, a palpable tension filling the air. Nathan looked around, noting the fear on every face. "What's the Pandora protocol?" he asked, dreading the answer. Diana's face was grim as she turned to her son. "It's our failsafe, Nathan. In the event that the Guardians are compromised, Pandora initiates a worldwide data purge. Every record, every bank account, every digital footprint gone in an instant." Nathan's eyes widened in horror. "But that would cause global chaos," Olivia finished for him. "Exactly. It's meant to be a last resort, a way to reset the board if we ever lost control, but in the wrong hand. It could be used to destroy everything," Nathan whispered, the enormity of the situation hitting him like a physical blow. As the team worked frantically to repel the cyber attack, Nathan's mind raced. Something about this whole situation felt off. The disruptors, as they'd been described to him, didn't seem like the type to cause such widespread destruction. Their goal was to free humanity from the Guardians' control, not plunge the world into anarchy. A seed of doubt began to grow in Nathan's mind. He glanced around the room, taking in the focused expressions of those he'd so recently come to trust. Or had he? In a world built on secrets and manipulation, could he really trust anyone? His eyes landed on his mother, Diana, the woman who had raised him, shaped his entire life for this moment. But how much of that life had been real? How much had been carefully crafted manipulation? As if sensing his gaze, Diana looked up, meeting his eyes. For a brief moment, Nathan saw something flicker across her face. Was it guilt? Fear? Before he could analyze it further, she quickly looked away, barking orders to a nearby analyst. Nathan's attention was drawn back to the main screen as a new alert flashed. "We've got an incoming video transmission," Sophia announced. It's from the leader of the disruptors." The room fell silent as the main screen flickered to life. The face that appeared sent shockwaves through Nathan's already fragile world. It was Marcus Sullivan, the FBI agent who had been at Olivia's beach house, who had seemed to be working with the Guardians. "Hello? The Guardians!" Marcus's voice rang out, filled with a cold determination. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Olivia stepped forward, her face a mask of fury. "Marcus, you traitor! How dare you!" Marcus cut her off with a laugh. "Traitor, oh Olivia, you can't betray something you never believed in. I've been working against you from the beginning, waiting for this moment." Nathan's mind reeled. Another layer of deception, another twist in this labyrinthine plot. He glanced at his mother, expecting to see shock or anger. Instead, he saw his resignation. "What do you want, Marcus?" Diana asked, her voice weary. Marcus's smile was cold. "What I've always wanted, Diana. The truth to be revealed. The Guardians to be exposed for what they really are, not protectors, but oppressors. And I'm going to use your own failsafe to do it." As Marcus outlined his plan to use the Pandora Protocol to expose the Guardians' secrets to the world, Nathan's mind was working overtime. Something still didn't add up. If Marcus had been a mole all along, how had he gained such high-level access? Unless he had help from the inside. The realization hit Nathan like a thunderbolt. He looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw the truth written in the lines of her face, in the sadness of her eyes. "It was you," he said softly, his voice barely audible over the chaos in the room. You're working with him." Diana met his gaze, and in that moment, the mask of the powerful Guardian fell away, revealing the conflicted woman beneath. "Oh, Nathan," she sighed. "You were never supposed to be involved in this. I tried so hard to keep you out of it." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Diana, Olivia's face contorted with rage. You're the traitor." Diana straightened, her voice gaining strength. "I'm not a traitor, Olivia. I'm trying to save us all. The Guardians have lost their way. We've become the very thing we swore to protect humanity against." As accusations flew and the room erupted into chaos, Nathan found himself at the eye of the storm. His mother, the woman he'd trusted above all others, had been playing a double game all along. But was she right? Had the Guardians truly lost their way? In that moment of confusion and betrayal, Nathan realized that the choice before him was greater than he could have ever imagined. It wasn't just about joining the Guardians or opposing them. It was about the very nature of freedom, of human agency, of the right to shape one's own destiny. As alarms blared and the Pandora Protocol inched closer to activation, Nathan knew that his next decision would shape not just his own future, but the future of the entire world. The weight of billions of lives pressed down on him, A burden he had never asked for but could no longer ignore. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. All eyes turned to him, the room falling silent once more. This isn't a decision any of us have the right to make unilaterally. Not the Guardians, not the Disruptors, not even my mother. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. If we're going to decide the fate of humanity, then humanity deserves a voice in that decision, Olivia scoffed. And how do you propose we do that, Nathan? Take a global vote while the world burns around us. Nathan's mind raced, years of teaching, critical thinking and problem-solving kicking into high gear. No, he said slowly, an idea forming. But we can give them a choice. We use the Guardians, communication networks, combined with the Disruptors, hacking capabilities. We tell the world the truth, all of it, and then we let them decide. The room erupted into arguments, with both Guardians and Disruptors protesting the idea. But as the debate raged, Nathan caught his mother's eye. For the first time since this ordeal began, he saw a glimmer of pride in her gaze. As the clock ticked down and the fate of the world hung in the balance, Nathan Parker stood firm. He had entered this world of shadows and secrets as a pawn, moved by forces beyond his understanding. But now, he realized, he had the opportunity to become something more. Not a king, not a guardian, but a bridge. Between secrecy and transparency, between control and freedom. The next few hours would determine whether his gamble would pay off, or whether the delicate balance of global power would come crashing down, plunging the world into a chaos from which it might never recover. And as Nathan prepared to make his case to both sides, he couldn't shake the feeling that the greatest challenges and the most shocking revelations were still to come. The next 24 hours were the most intense of Nathan's life. As the world teetered on the brink of chaos, he found himself at the center of a global debate that would determine the future of humanity. Using a combination of the Guardians' vast communication network and the Disruptors' hacking capabilities, Nathan's proposal was put into action. The truth, or at least as much of it as could be safely revealed, was broadcast to every corner of the globe. People everywhere watched in stunned silence as the curtain was pulled back on the secret war that had been waging in the shadows. The Guardians, the Disruptors, the delicate balance of power that had shaped world events for generations. All of it was laid bare. As the information spread, reactions varied wildly. Some were outraged, feeling betrayed by the hidden manipulations of the Guardians. Others were grateful, understanding the necessity of such a system in an increasingly complex world. Debates raged in homes, in offices, in the halls of government. Through it all, Nathan worked tirelessly, coordinating efforts between the Guardians and the Disruptors to prevent global systems from collapsing. It was a delicate dance, requiring all of his skills as an educator and mediator. Olivia, despite her initial resistance, proved to be an invaluable ally. Her years of experience navigating the treacherous waters of global politics came to the fore as she helped manage the fallout. "You know," she said to Nathan during a rare quiet moment, "when I married you, I thought it was just another move in the game. I never expected this." Nathan smiled wryly. "Funny how life works out, isn't it?" As the hours ticked by, a surprising trend began to emerge. Instead of the panic and chaos many had feared, people around the world were coming together. The revelation of the Guardians and the Disruptors had sparked a global conversation about governance, freedom, and the future of humanity. It was Diana who first noticed the pattern. "Look," she said, pointing to a series of data streams, "people aren't just reacting, they're organizing, forming discussion groups, think tanks, citizen committees." Nathan leaned in, his eyes widening as he took in the information. "They're creating a new system," he breathed. From the ground up, as the dust began to settle, it became clear that the world would never be the same. The old system of shadow governance was gone, but in its place, something new was emerging. A hybrid model, combining elements of the Guardians, global oversight with the Disruptors, belief in human agency and transparency. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still disagreements about how this new world order should function. But for the first time in generations, these discussions were happening in the open, with input from people all over the world. In the aftermath, as the immediate crisis passed, Nathan found himself face to face with his mother. Diana looked older, the weight of her years of deception finally showing on her face. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "For everything. For the lies. For the manipulation. I thought I was protecting you, but in the end you were the one who saved us all." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "I understand why you did it," he said finally, "but I don't know if I can forgive you." "Not yet." Diana nodded, accepting his words with a sad smile. "I hope someday you'll understand that everything I did out of love. For you and for the world." As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the new global system began to take shape. It wasn't without its challenges. Old power structures fought to maintain their influence, and there were those who sought to take advantage of the transitional chaos. But through it all, Nathan found himself at the forefront of the change. His unique perspective, part guardian, part outsider, made him an ideal bridge between the old world and the new. Olivia, to everyone's surprise, became one of the strongest advocates for transparency and reform. Her years of experience in the shadows gave her unique insights into how to dismantle the very systems she had once helped maintain. "You've changed," Nathan remarked to her one evening as they stood on the balcony of what had once been the Guardians' headquarters, now repurposed as a global coordination center. Olivia smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes that Nathan was still getting used to. "We've all changed," she said. "The world has changed, and I think, for once, it might be for the better." As for Marcus and the Disruptors, they too found a place in the new order. Their skills and determination, once used to fight against the Guardians, were now turned towards building a more open and equitable global system. It wasn't a perfect solution. The world was still filled with challenges, with conflicts and inequalities, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. Hope that humanity could face its problems together, in the light, rather than having its fate decided in the shadows. Nathan's role in this new world was far from over. As an educator, he found himself in high demand, helping to develop new curricula that would teach the next generation about global citizenship, critical thinking, and the importance of vigilance in maintaining a free and open society. 1 year to the day after the revelation that had changed everything, Nathan stood before a gathering of world leaders, educators, and citizens. As he looked out over the sea of faces, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "A year ago," he began, his voice carrying across the hushed audience, "we stood on the brink of chaos. The world as we knew it was about to be torn apart by secrets and lies. But in our darkest hour, we found our greatest strength, our ability to come together, to listen to each other, to build something new." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd. He saw his mother, sitting quietly in the back, a mix of pride and regret on her face. He saw Olivia standing tall and confident, a symbol of how people could change, could grow. He saw faces from every corner of the globe, united in their determination to forge a better future. "We have a long road ahead of us," Nathan continued. "The challenges we face are great, but for the first time in generations, we face them together, in the open, with all of humanity working towards a common goal." As he finished his speech to thunderous applause, Nathan felt a sense of peace wash over him. The world he had known, the life he had lived, was gone, but in its place was something new, something full of potential and hope. Later that night, as he stood on the balcony of his apartment, looking out over a city alive with lights and possibility, Nathan reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a small-town teacher to the center of a global revolution, it had been a path he could never have imagined. Olivia joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Penny for your thoughts, Professor Parker," she asked, a teasing lilt in her voice. Nathan smiled, squeezing her hand. "Just thinking about how life can surprise you," he said. "A year ago, I thought I knew who I was, what my place in the world was. Now you're a hero," Olivia finished for him. "A bridge between worlds, a beacon of hope." Nathan shook his head. "No, not a hero, just someone who was in the right place at the right time, who made a choice to stand up for what was right." As they stood there, looking out over the city, Nathan felt a sense of anticipation for what the future might hold. The world was changing, evolving, and he was part of that change. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt, but for the first time in his life, Nathan felt truly alive, truly part of something greater than himself. And as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, Nathan Parker, once a simple teacher from a small town in Oregon, now a key figure in shaping the future of humanity, smiled. Whatever came next, he was ready to face it, not alone, but together with a world united in hope and determination. The future, uncertain as it might be, had never looked brighter.